Gentlemen, you've chosen to not go head-to-head with Sirius in a price war on the hardware cost. How do you assess the sustainability of the approach that they have taken? And if the approach that you've taken to offset their market, their attempt to achieve a market advantage, if your approach doesn't work, what is your next step, and what would you do to mitigate the lack of success of your approach? And the second part of my question, you've indicated that the long-term approach is to attempt to drive down the hardware cost. Could you explain to us how you would propose to do that, considering that both XM and Sirius source their hardware from the same manufacturers?
Okay, I'll actually take the first part of the question. Just to make sure I understood the question correctly, you're asking about our price war avoidance strategy and choosing to go with more of a marketing approach, such as the free month subscription, as well as trying to use the marketplace to justify the price difference. Well, the sustainability of our strategy actually was counting on being able to lower the cost of the technology in the long run. We were not saying that our price will always remain at that price point. When we were able to get the technology cost to go down, we will be able to adjust the prices to match that of Sirius or come close to it. But as I said, our main revenue earner is the subscription fees. So in terms of getting a consumer hooked on our service, the actual cost of the device is, I believe, a minimal part of the overall investment getting into satellite radio. So if you're going to get into a satellite radio, or rather get into a satellite subscription, you're looking at, say, $60 to $80 investment just to get the radio, and then from that point on, it's about $50 a month. So the 3 month $45 savings, it's enough to justify the difference for them to go, okay, we'll go with XM rather than Sirius. And as I said, we can differentiate on content as well as features of our devices. Does that answer the first part of the question? Okay. Pass on to Nicola to answer the cost.
Yeah, so for the cost, I mentioned that through economies of scale, the cost will go down, but this is, as you mentioned, will be coming to us and to Sirius. However, if we manage to acquire a larger customer base, then we will benefit more. The other thing is that we would look into partnerships with similar electronic devices, whereby we can bundle this receiver functionality with other OEM manufacturers, and that will allow us to get some subsidize less our hardware costs, so we can drive them through using the other devices as carrier to the market. Does that?
You partially answered the question. I think that Sirius may be looking at the same type of approach in terms of driving down the cost of the hardware. How are you going to be successful in negotiating lower costs with the hardware manufacturers versus the anticipated success that Sirius may have in a similar negotiation? What approach will you take?
We have an advantage over in the OEM automotive market, and that will bring additional ordering volumes for us than from Sirius. And that will be a good negotiation point for us to lower the cost for us, because we have an advantage over them in other OEM, especially the automotive part of it.
What do you think the impact on cash flows is going to be as a result of both these crises together?
In terms of the first crisis, which is the price reduction, as we outlined in our presentation, we're looking at a drop in revenues of about $2 million in the first quarter, the quarter that we will be sort of selling off as free to the new subscribers. There's about a $2 million loss of revenue there, which represents about 30% of the overall revenue that we were expecting to make in that quarter. So that would be the first effect of the first price revenue. In terms of the second crisis, which is the satellite failure, we are looking at either using leasing out the satellites. We were looking at the cost of leasing out the satellite service. We expect that cost to be, we can assume that it will be relevant to how much we are paying right now for our satellites on a lease basis. We assume that in a leasing satellite service or market, there's very little differentiation you can do in terms of leasing a satellite, and that could be almost approached as a commodity market. So just the cost of getting some airtime from a satellite can be leveled out, and we will be looking at how much we pay to run our satellites versus how much we will get, and paying for another satellite will be similar. So we don't expect a whole lot of impact on our revenues. If there's anything, it'll be more for the service charge using somebody else's satellite.
And if you're wrong, and if there's a fairly large impact on cash flows of the business, what steps would you take to continue to go into concern the company?
This morning, as we discussed, we're looking at the likelihood to have to raise money in 2008. So we're expecting an influx of cash at that time. So we certainly hope that at the order of magnitude that we're expecting in terms of loss of revenue, we'd be able to absorb that with this coming influx of cash.
Just adding on to that, if we're looking at the revenue and cost side, if you're just talking in general, what would be the effect of a lower revenue on a business? Obviously, the first part where it gets us is in the margin. In terms of, we haven't explored the cost side of this equation. We can get rid of parts of our proposition that don't necessarily offer value to the customer, certain aspects of our service that will not affect us as a competitor in this market. We can lower our cost and therefore adjust our revenues, rather our margins, so that it doesn't hurt us on the bottom line as much.
I'm going to bring you back to your marketing blitz idea as part of the short-term solution. To what extent does the execution of that require new skills that either you don't have or isn't out there in the marketplace, and how are you going to develop them to make sure you can execute well?
Okay, actually, in the earlier presentation, we also recommended training our sales force to streamline our sales and distribution operation, and get them to differentiate our service as well as our hardware from the other competitor. And as such, I would say if this recommendation was followed, then our sales is in place for that. We've taken into account the human aspect of it. We know that it's very important, but that was our recommendation.
Just to add on to that, in terms of marketing kits, using mostly inexpensive marketing such as banners, in-store banners, or in-store marketing displays, we can hit a consumer approaching this satellite market by right away our strong points compared to Sirius, and that could be in addition to what our sales force is aware of in terms of differentiators of our business versus theirs.
My question was, as a response to the satellite going down, your immediate responses to the lease and the satellite, did you look at the same response that you proposed for point number one, which was offering some sort of free month or two or three on the back end? Do you have any thought to that versus the cost of the leasing of the additional satellite?
So you mean just to remain down until the new satellites are up and running? We hadn't considered that. I think that I would imagine there's with our satellites going down and XM Canada losing service, there'd be some type of compensation. So by leasing a satellite, another satellite, it's a wash in that sense. So we believe we can go that route, and we don't have to give up those months of subscription revenues, and we think that that's a better route for the company.
Just on this, actually, we think the time for XM Canada is market share. Any loss of time is loss of market share. So that's why it's very critical to attain a reliable service.
What happens if you lose roll in the short term?
Sorry, if you
You've lost rock, and you lose your other satellite, then what happens?
close that shop. I think that's a very good question, and this will go back to basically we lost all capabilities of transmitting our signal through our own proprietary satellites. I think the availability of leased satellites will always exist. We've experimented, we've actually researched that, we've come across a mainstream service provider, which is a business that provides us with bandwidth for satellites. And we could simply still leverage that. Another option that we considered is repeaters. We could we actually were looking at putting up 2 more satellites in the near future. If we can use terrestrial repeaters, which are repeaters that don't receive a signal from a satellite, but can send a signal on the ground, we can leverage those to send a signal on the ground rather than having to send out the satellite and then back down. So we'll achieve the same purpose. This will be a temporary result, but we will have to likely depend more on leasing that satellite.
Just to add on top of that, the third satellite radio operator, WorldCom, also has a stake in XM Canada as well. And it is possible to form a partnership and get emergency satellite coverage from North America. And also, as Karim mentioned, we have 16 repeater networks in Canada with major population density areas. And it is possible to transmit that satellite radio through terrestrial transmitters and to cover at least the population in the major cities of Canada.
Well, one question, customer relationship management is short-term and long-term, and I think you've done a great job with the short-term item and recognize that the cost of a radio is a one-time event. My question is, what's the differentiation, if any, in terms of how long a subscriber has to commit to XM Canada? And how do you deal with the issue of the fighting that goes on in the front end in terms of concern that I would have as a consumer is, what are you going to do after that 3-month freebie?
I think that actually switching from one subscriber to another involves some switching costs. So the issue that what we recommended earlier also is that we have to manage the churn rate, which is the loss of the customer after subscription. And we said that this can be in part managed by long-term binding contracts, 3 years contracts. As well, technology in this industry is evolving rapidly, and we're adding actually additional services such as video content, data content, navigation content, so that we can cross-sell keep them compared with us.
The last question is, did you consider reducing and seeding with a lower retail price and locking in with a longer-term upfront contract rather than free period?
Yeah, we consider that actually in the morning, providing even free the device, but locking up the long-term agreement. We consider that.
Did you consider reducing and seeding with a lower retail price and locking in with a longer-term upfront contract rather than free period?
Yeah, we consider that actually in the morning, providing even free the device, but locking up the long-term agreement. We consider that.
Our only fear here is that we do want the consumer to just sign up at this point, and if they start to enjoy the service enough, they will want to stick to it and continue to pay the subscription. So long-term contracts and new technology might not be, we didn't think would be the best strategy to go after, simply because it would be too risky to bet our bets on that. We should just get them into the business, the service rather, and then we can just continue to make revenues out of them. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was